Good morning, friends, family, and curious onlookers. It's Captain Fluffy Beard with the Roaming Homesteaders. My daughter is telling me that I have a fluffy beard, and that's my new nickname. So I'm just gonna go with it. But anyway, today we're gonna be showing you how to shell corn, and then we're gonna make some polenta. So we've been really excited for this. I actually harvested our last batch of corn, which is the Floriani Red Flint Corn. It's supposed to be the best corn on earth for polenta, and we're gonna go ahead and try that today. We have the corn we're gonna shell, and then we have the grinder that we're gonna grind it up in. And it's just gonna be sort of a all-in-one video today showing you how we go from shelling the corn to making the polenta, and then hopefully enjoying it for dinner as part of our MLK Vacation Day barbecue. So let's jump right in, and I'll show you what I have here in front of me and all the tools and everything we need to get going.
In the suburbs of Northern California is a family living between worlds. With one foot planted firmly in the past, aspiring homesteaders Jake and Wendy are raising their 5 young children to learn and appreciate historic trades and skills as they look together to the future. They want to show that dedication to God, commitment to family, and compassion towards others are not lost ideals, but rather the hallmarks of any truly great generation, something we can still reclaim today. As they built a life on faith and tradition, they found themselves on a unique journey, rediscovering the knowledge, ingenuity, and wisdom of older generations in their own shared quest for home.
So the first thing that you're going to need is corn. As you may remember, we actually harvested this corn back in August, and it's a type called Floriani Red Flint Corn. I'll go ahead and link our source and the type below so you can take a look at it. But as you can see, it's about 8 or 9 inch cob with a number of rows. I haven't counted them exactly, but it's a full cob. You can see it pollinated all the way to the end. Nice hard flint corn kernels, and this has actually been drying outside in our drying racks since late August. I only brought it in about 3 weeks ago because the rains had started up here, so I wanted to keep it from getting wet, but it is nice and hard. And if you see here, you can tap these together. You can hear that the corn is well cured, well dried, not soft anymore at all. And this is going to be perfect for doing what we want to today. Now, this type of corn was pretty easy to grow. Our beds have been running out of fertilizer since the last time we did this, probably 3.5 years ago. We had put in a bunch of compost and other things, and we've just been kind of running on the reserve of the fertilizer that was left in our garden and whatever we would put in for the new year with our organic or chemical sources. And we noticed vigor was going down in the corn. So, you know, they got a little bit shorter. They weren't as bushier as we would prefer. They weren't as green, but they were still growing pretty well. So this was the last harvest we decided before we were going to rejuvenate our soil. And there's a video elsewhere on the channel here where we brought in about 10 tons of cow manure to put in for the winter. You can watch that video in the list below. But we've gone ahead and gotten the garden ready for a new fresh batch of corn and other things this next year. So we're anticipating an even larger crop next year of whatever type of corn we do grow in the summer. But this was the last batch we made before that kind of petered out. So these aren't as large as some of the other corn that we've grown, but we were pretty happy with it, considering that we're in the middle of a drought. You know, it was a pretty good return, and we got a full bucket. I mean, I'll show you this here in a minute, but we have an entire 5-gallon bucket full of cobs that we're going to shell today, and that might give us about 20 or 25 pounds of corn, and we're going to get all this shelled up. Now, a few people have asked us how we shell corn by hand. I've seen other homesteaders who have larger patches of corn, and they're, you know, shelling them with just gloves and just kind of rubbing on the cob and getting those all open. And I think as one homesteading family that we followed did this year, they noted that they very quickly got blisters. So We've shared our secret to shelling this sort of corn. And I want to talk about two things. So first, many of you may have seen the antique corn shellers that are out there. They're a cast iron sort of tool with a strange looking cage and a handle, and you actually bolt it to the side of a wooden box, and then you feed your corn in, and you crank the handle, and it goes down and it rubs off all the kernels and drops it in the box. That's really great. We actually own one of those. We haven't had the opportunity to use it yet, but we were able to get a hold of one in the middle of the pandemic before they ran out forever, and it seems like they're no longer available from anyone. You can't really get them from Lehman's, you can't find them on Amazon. So we were really fortunate that we have that tool, and we're going to be able to use that if we expand our corn growing again. But for everyone else, we recommend a different tool, which is pretty simple. It's called a Decker corn sheller. And if you look on the internet, you can find these pretty cheap. I think they're about $20. And what it is it's a cast aluminum, just a little ferrule, and it has teeth inside, and it has ribs on the inside. And I'll give you a close-up shot of this in a moment. But the Decker corn sheller is just a really old implement. It's been around for a long time. They're made in Keokuk, Iowa, and they've been around forever. About $20, you can get one online. And the way these work is you put your corn in the sheller, just like that, until it bumps up against the teeth. And with a little bit of pressure, you're just gonna twist it. And what it'll do is it'll pop those kernels off, and you can catch any others with your fingers, but you're not gonna be rubbing on them directly with gloves or with your hands like this, and you're not gonna get those blisters. That's a really important part. So this is a great tool. We recommend this to everyone, the Decker corn sheller. You can buy it online for about $20. We'll link our source below. We don't get any kickbacks from this. This is just a really great tool that we recommend for everyone who's gonna be doing a moderate amount. So if you're growing, 20 by 20 worth of corn, it might not be worth the investment to get an actual antique or reproduction corn sheller like you'd find for $200 or $300. But these are $20, and you can buy 2 or 3 or 4 of these and have them laying around, and then you can make very short work of your corn shelling when it's time to do that after they've dried out and you're ready to use these every fall. So here's a close-up of our Decker corn sheller. You can see it's got the Decker corn sheller Keokuk, Iowa cast into the aluminum here. But you can see these teeth that I was talking about. You have, a couple of big teeth and a couple of small teeth. And if you flip it over, you see here, it's also got the ribs inside. So this is what rubs against that hard corn, catches the rows, and then helps shell it out. So it's a pretty basic tool. Like I said, $20 online. Aluminum is far harder than your hands and your fingers, and you won't get blisters unless you're making, unless you're shelling a whole lot of corn. But we'll go ahead and show you how to use this here, and you can find these in the links below. We've got a couple of buckets here. It really doesn't matter as long as they're clean. We got a couple of these. I think one's from Home Depot, one's from Lowe's. As long as they're sort of food grade buckets, doesn't really matter. I've even used these sort of clean Rubbermaid trash cans before. But we're doing this inside today because it is cold out. It's about 45 degrees and wet, and I want to stay dry and warm inside. So we're going to go ahead and do this in the kitchen. Hopefully we won't make too much of a mess. The first thing that you're going to do is you're going to take your sheller, just as I demonstrated earlier. You're going to take a corn cob that's been nice and cured off, nice and hard, and you're going to put it into the sheller, and you're just going to twist. So this is a loud process, but I'm just going to demonstrate this on a few, and then we'll get to shelling the rest. So as you can see, this sheller made short work of this cob. Pretty straightforward. You just clear it right out, and that's it. So I'm going to go ahead and start and work on the rest of these, and we'll get all this corn shelled up, and then we'll show you what we're going to do next. We finished shelling our flint corn here, and as you can see, we got a pretty good haul. This is about a little less than 2 gallons, and as you can see, there's still a lot of corn tassels floating around in here. Not a lot of debris. Well, there's a little bit of debris, but you can see there's a lot of corn cob debris and tassels in here. So the next step that we're gonna have to do is I'm gonna take this outside, and we're gonna have to winnow this with a fan so that it blows off all of this extra stuff, and the only things we're left with is going to be the pure corn. So let's go out and do that real quick. So winnowing is actually pretty easy. The whole idea is that you're going to take a fan or even a windy day, and you're going to drop the corn kernels in front of the fan into another bucket. And as you do that, the very light, fluffy stuff that's left in there is going to blow away, and all that's going to fall into your bucket is going to be clean kernels. So let me go ahead and show you how we're going to do that today. Now, once you do that, you can see that you have a lot of this debris and fluff and corn silks and all that stuff scattered on the ground, and that your corn in the bucket is much cleaner. This is great. I mean, you can stop at this point if you think that you've got enough of the stuff out, but what I usually do is I'll go ahead, you can see it's actually being blown away a little bit by the wind. I'll go ahead and run this through a couple of more times so that I have nice clean kernels and nothing left but the actual corn that I'm gonna want to eat. So remember, whatever you grind up is gonna be what you eat. So if you have a lot of this other stuff in there, it's not gonna be as tasty or good for you. Okay, so now you can see that the corn we have left is very clean. This is about as clean as you can get it without mechanical cleaners and polishers and things, but you can see it is free from any significant corn silks. There isn't any of the leftover flakes that you get from the corn cob end, and it is nice and clean. So this is the sort of thing. There's a couple things you can see here and there. Like here's a random silk that floated out, but for the most part, this is nice and clean and dry, and I'm gonna go ahead and we're gonna bag this up and weigh it and see how much we have from last year's crop. And after we do that, we can actually start milling some cornmeal so that we can have some delicious polenta for dinner. So let's go check that out. Now we're gonna go ahead and weigh and see how much we've got in here. We have our little kitchen scale here. It's been tared to zero. We're gonna look at ounces here, and we'll go ahead and weigh these 2 bags and see how much we got out of the corn this year. So this one says, you probably can't see it, but it says 5 pounds, 5 ounces. So that's it's a little over 5 pounds of corn right there. This one Yeah, this one is 6 pounds, 8 ounces. So that's 6.5. So you do our math and that's about 12 pounds of corn. So we have 12 pounds of Floriani Red Flint Corn that we got out of our garden this last year. So for, 100 plants, actually, I want to say a little less, more like 80 plants. So for 80 plants, we got 12 pounds of corn. That's not going to feed a family for a whole year, but you could see that you could get a decent amount of corn. And between these two bags, we've got 12 pounds of corn. We'll probably keep some of the corn back so we can grow and share the seeds in the future. But, we still have a good 10 pounds of corn, and therefore, 10 pounds of cornmeal that can go into polenta to make. So I'm pretty happy with that. That's good for a drought affected patch in our backyard. And this is actually more than we grew the year before. The year before we grew Big Horse Spotted, which is an endangered Native American corn, and we only got one bag, about 5 pounds. So for this to have twice as much in a drought year, pretty good. So I'm excited. We'll go ahead and store these away. I'm gonna keep this one out. We're gonna make some polenta cornmeal for that, and this one will go with the other seeds in the cool dry storage, and we'll have seeds for future crops. Okay, the next step is we're gonna go ahead and grind up some of this corn. If you'll recall, we have our polenta corn. This is Floriani Red Flint Corn. It's Italian flint corn that's supposedly the best for polenta. We're gonna go ahead and grind some up in our Mock Mill 100, and hopefully we'll have enough that we can make some polenta here in the next day or two. So let's go ahead and get this ground up. Okay, now that we've ground our cornmeal, we're gonna go ahead and sieve this. I'm just gonna use a basic kitchen sieve or a colander, and we're gonna go ahead and get the grits out of this so that we'll have nothing but our polenta meal and then grits separated from this. We went ahead and made a couple of pounds of our polenta meal, which is just cornmeal. I don't know, I think this is probably about 3 pounds. There's a few cups worth. So there's our cornmeal. And then of course, we went ahead and got the grits out of it. So there's our grits. We're gonna try to make up some breakfast grits with those. And then we've got our polenta meal ready to go ahead and make some polenta. So now we've got our main ingredient. Okay, now we're gonna go ahead and make some polenta with the ground up meal that we made with our Mock Mill 100. And we're gonna jump right in and get some of this on the table for dinner. Here is, we have 2 liters of water going on here, 2 quarts approximately. We're gonna make a big batch here for the family. And we're gonna start with, some salt. It's about a teaspoon of salt. That's just our sea salt. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna heat this up. I'm gonna stir this. A big part of this is just gonna be stirring. But we're gonna go ahead and stir this. Got our salt in there. And then once that heats up, we're gonna put in our cornmeal or our polenta meal. This water is almost boiling. It's starting to simmer. We're gonna go ahead, we're gonna mix in our meal. So there's a lot here. This is several cups, but we're gonna go ahead and start sprinkling it in and stirring it. So I've gone ahead and stirred this in so that we don't have clumps in this. And you can see it's a really runny sort of porridge thing. And a good part of what we're gonna do next is simply getting it up to heat, turning it down to simmer, and then stirring it constantly. You know, now that I've used my whisk here, I can set that aside and I can start using the traditional polenta stirring device, which is a wooden spoon. So now we're going to be stirring this with the wooden spoon, and I'm going to go ahead and set my timer for about 30 minutes, and we're going to start getting this going. Okay, so I've been stirring this for about 40 minutes. As you can see, it's considerably thicker. And there's different views of how you should keep going with this, but I think consistently you can say that the next step is to put in some butter. And I will say this is a big hunk of butter. I'm gonna go ahead and throw that in there. And I'll point out that I'm making the industrial sized Italian family batch. I think this was 3 or 4 cups of polenta meal, 2 liters of water. I mean, we got a lot in here. So I'm gonna go ahead and stir this butter in. You can see that that's already reducing the surface tension, and it's making it a little more creamy and less sticky. So I don't think I'll have to add any more water to this, but you can see that butter melting nicely. And I'm going ahead and stirring that all in here. The next step that I can take is I can throw the cheese in. You don't really have to wait. I mean, some people do, but you don't really have to wait at this point. We're pretty close to the end, so I'm just gonna throw in my cheese. That's, I don't know, 1.5 cups of grated Parmesan and, of all things, Gruyere. So we have some Gruyere cheese in there as well. We're looking for, you know, a flavorful cheese. In the north of Italy, polenta is traditionally made with a local cheese that's very pungent, and we can't really get a hold of that, so we went ahead and we put in some Gruyere. So we've got Parmesan and Gruyere and butter. We'll go ahead and mix that in and melt it down, make that nice and cheesy. This is getting real thick. You can imagine stirring this for 45 minutes has been a little rough on the arm. Get my exercise for the day, but so you can see that's getting pretty cheesy. Cheese is melting. And I'm gonna go ahead and just do a little, some people put the olive oil on when they plate it up. I'm just gonna do a little drizzle right now. Just throw that in there so we can get a little more creamy. And I think we got a couple more minutes. I'm gonna stir this for a couple more minutes, get that olive oil and butter and cheese mixed in well, but it's almost ready to eat. So we went ahead and got our polenta plated up. We got a couple bowls here. It's a very light flavor. It's creamy. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna add our sauce here. What kind of sauce is this? Italian sausage. We're gonna go ahead and put our sauce here. We'll be all fancy like the restaurants and make it look all, I don't know, gourmet. That's gourmet, right? Where they hardly give you any food. I'm just gonna do that, yeah. All right, so there you have it. We have garden to table polenta from our own polenta, ground in-house, cooked in-house, and turned into a home-cooked meal. So let's go ahead and try this out. All right. So here we have it, garden to table polenta. Let's go ahead and give it a try. See what we got. It's actually very rich.
Yeah, I like that. I like it. It's has like a, I can't think of the word. Like a little bit of a gritty taste to it.
It's gritty? That's not a great word for gourmet. You're talking about the consistency?
Yeah.
Yep. So,
Very.
what do you think of the flavor?
I like the flavor. It's nice and light, like not too overpowering, but it's very flavorful.
It goes well with the sauce?
Oh, and it goes great with the sauce.
I think if we did some sort of roast, with some juices or some sort of Italian meat dish, like a heavy sort of thing, it'd go really well with it. It's very creamy. So, I like it. Overall, a success. So, pretty happy with it. Cheers. We hope you like this episode of the Roaming Homesteaders on our garden to table polenta journey. We've got like 15 pounds of this stuff left. I think we're going to experiment a little more in our Italian repertoire of cooking. And overall, I'm pretty pleased with it. So it was something I would definitely do again, and a good experiment. I think finding ways that you can make foods that you're going to eat on a regular basis and something that can store long term and be good for gourmet cooking, I think is really important. So we've really enjoyed this experiment. It's been a long time coming. I think we planted this, I'd say last February or last March we planted the corn. We harvested it in August. We let it dry out until December, and then we've just now gotten around to grinding it and cooking with it. So a long journey, but I think well worth it in the end, and we encourage anyone to try it for themselves. If you like this episode, we'd appreciate it if you'd subscribe to our channel and click the bell so that you're notified whenever new videos are released. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye.